The wounded surgeon plies the steel that questions the distempered part. Beneath the bleeding hands we feel the sharp compassion of the healer's art, resolving the enigma of the fever chart. Our only health is the disease, if we obey the dying nurse, whose constant care is not to please, but to remind of our and Adam's curse, and that to be restored our sickness must grow worse. The whole earth is our hospital, endowed by the ruined millionaire, wherein if we do well we shall die of the absolute paternal care that will not leave us but prevents us everywhere. The chill ascends from feet to knees, the fever sings in mental wires. If to be warmed then I must freeze, and quake in frigid purgatorial fires, of which the flame is roses and the smoke is briars. The dripping blood our only drink, the bloody flesh our only food, in spite of which we like to think that we are sound, substantial flesh and blood. Again, in spite of that, we call this Friday good. For somebody who isn't a convinced Christian, what's so important about Good Friday? I think what Good Friday does for everyone of any particular religious perspective is act as an antidote to a world which is obsessed with power and with the idea that all problems in the world would be solved if only we, the great I am, the great we are, were given the power to deal with all the people we don't like and all the things we don't like. And that's a very tempting temptation, but we also know it's not realistic, it's not how the world works. And we are not in a perfect place to judge what's happening. And that's why we have this suddenly very angry world full of shouty people from different political perspectives, different religious perspectives, anti-religious perspectives, who all think they have the answers to everything. And if they can shout people down, if they can block them on the internet, if they can ban them, if they can pursue them in their places of work for thinking and saying the wrong things, then somehow we'll build a better world where everybody will be equal, where there'll be no crime, whatever people's particular focus of interest happens to be. And it's not like that. The danger is that when we start saying that, then we decide that hell is other people. And the truth is we're all mixtures of good and bad. We all have times in our lives when we say and do the most horrendous things, and that's a big part of what the story of Good Friday is about. Jesus Christ, who we Christians believe is God made man, he is literally God walking the earth, and rather than listening to him, rather than doing the right thing, rather than following his teachings, which are all about loving one another and self-sacrifice and putting others ahead of yourself, the authorities stitch him up, frame him up. The religious and political authorities, who don't really like each other very much, stitch him up, have him executed, and even his closest friends who follow him to the end, it turns out that when the going gets really rough, they hightail it and disappear. And yet, it was these people on whom the church was built and the story of the church from 2,000 years began with. So that's another thing that's very important to take from Good Friday. Although it might seem a very negative festival, at its heart is forgiveness. Famous story, Peter denies Jesus 3 times before the cock crows. Nothing to do with that guy. What do you mean by Galilean accent? I'm not one of those people. I've got nothing to do with him. Jesus forgives him. And we live in a world where it seems to be very difficult for people to forgive. If you forgive, you're a mug. If you forgive, you're just letting the strong and the wrongdoers get away from doing bad things to the weak. What you really need to do is pursue people and have accountability. And that can't be the whole story. Of course, justice and accountability are a very important part of making a good society, but that can't be the whole story. So Good Friday is an antidote to that. It's an antidote to the idea that we always have to be in the right. It's an antidote that we always have to demand perfect recompense from anybody who wrongs us. It's a cry for the need for forgiveness, because each one of us needs it, because each one of us has done the wrong thing. So that's maybe something to think about, and we'll be back on the internet from St. John's on Sunday, where we see the other leg of this great Christian festival of Easter, which is Easter Day, the day of resurrection. But this is a sombre day in a sombre year, a day when Christians remember the death of God killed by the people he came to save, and it's come at the end of a terrible year of death with the pandemic. 150,000 people dead in the UK. That's quite extraordinary stuff. It's been a terrible year for us in so many ways. Each one of us confined to our homes for months, frightened, worried, people losing jobs, people having their education messed up. And part of that Good Friday story, of course, is that when things seem at their absolute bleakest, this is actually a prelude to new life and resurrection. And we'll get there in about 48 hours' time. Thanks for listening. And now we'll move on to having some more lovely music from the choir.